wish that you could be here now in this life. We are together, and I still hope that you'll be mine forever. Even though you're far away, I still know we need to end. We are together.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone is able to have a fairly good day so far. Talk about a bunch of action. Jeez. Bitcoin's climbing back up. Almost got to 21,000 and started backing up a little bit. As far as the, yeah, it's just been a wild week, hasn't it? These V bottoms all over the place, man. They just, what crazy reversals they've got going on. I mean, even on the S&P, it didn't make a new low, right? It missed the low by a little bit on the S&P, and now it's back up to the highs. But looking at things like the NASDAQ, I mean, geez. The NASDAQ got that chunk all the way back down, trapped the lows, and then after trapping the lows, bounced it right back up with a double bottom, and now it's screaming all the way back to the highs. All right. Let's see if they want to get things moving around a little bit. All right, there we go. Fade the Fed. Yeah, I know, right? What a wild move. T-bond news sold off, and now this. NASDAQ broke 700. Get that? Yeah, big time. I mean, this overall movement that we've got going on has just been absolutely incredible. The rotation off the bottom was phenomenal. It's crazy because you look at the corner, it's like, oh, it's not even up 1%, but the amount of movement that's happened today is just absurd. I mean, it's wow. From the bottom earlier this morning to where it is now, it's at a 500 tick day. I mean, that's a really good moving day. Let's see where people want to come in going into the end of the day. Big chunk of volume starting to build the 699s. On the S&P, backing up a little bit, but yeah. Let's see if they can get a bit more continuation or what they want to do here. Quick little dip lower would be potentially really useful, but I would really want to see it go just a bit lower. Probably around the 70s. I think that's going to be the big zone of interest in the 70s. 71.50. There's a few different ways to approach it. I mean, realistically, the first way is looking at this move up and saying, you know what, it's probably not going to pull back much, even if it does. It'll probably end up being something like this, where it's a trap low and a rotation back up. So seeing this flush back a little bit would make a lot of sense. But is this going to be the bottom at 71.5? I mean, maybe. You know, but realistically, we're talking the NASDAQ. It wouldn't be a surprise to see it flush below it a little bit too. So this whole zone becomes an area of interest to try to ping the market back up again. It's just a matter of whether or not it's actually going to flush that far down. All right. Well, getting a little bit of a pullback. Volume staying predominantly below that 699. Kind of interesting to see it forming around here. Let's bump this forward a bit. 700's got a big chunk of volume, as well as 702's above that. I just want to see the volume start building when it begins pulling back into the zone of interest. On the S&P, it's a similar area, but I'm kind of interested to see how big the bear bar gets on the S&P, because I mean, there's still 2.5 minutes left. There's plenty of time for this to get much larger. I wouldn't mind a, wow, big volume just stepped up on the NASDAQ there. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit of a washout to kind of play off of. Watching 97.50s on the S&P as well. This will be a zone of interest for buyers to re-enter on their earlier zone of interest. So that's 97.50, 95.50, all inside there. Not a huge objective necessarily for the S&P, but it's a nice spot. All right, first objective 1 point. Second objective is 1.5 points. I mean, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but it's there. NASDAQ also pulling back a little bit. Let's zoom in a bit more so I can see what's going on. Tested the target, testing the second target. Come on, there we go. Nice bounce back up. More objectives above that would probably be back to like the volume node, 3700s. I just don't know that I want to mess around with the 3700s. It's a weird spot right now on the S&P. Really, really awkward. Great washout pullback. Hard to complain with that one. Still haven't gotten the full pullback on the NASDAQ. That's a bit further down around the 671s. Bitcoin charging back up again, 20,854. What are the highs now? 20,000. Oh, don't roll away from me now. The high 907.98. I love it when they do those Walmart special prices. It's not 20,000. It's 19,999.99. Always. Got to front run it. Make sure you get filled. Wow, man, the NASDAQ buyers did show up at the moving average. Honestly, they showed up so aggressively with that big burst in volume. I didn't think it was going to be that much of a bounce. That seemed like a fake out to me. I didn't think they'd make it that obvious. Pull back to that moving average, though, and they just slammed it. S&P back up to that volume node in the 700s. Not a surprise. Next objective, if it does want to keep going up, would be the high closes. Market just kind of stalling out, not really doing much yet. On the NASDAQ, at least. The S&P offered up a beautiful pullback. S&P kind of picking back up again. Got the last 20 minutes or so. Looking at the bigger picture, I mean, we've got that's NASDAQ's unbelievable. Cracking higher again. I mean, it's breaking above the wedge tops. S&P ended up holding the midline that we were talking about in the morning brief. The daily brief, sorry. Gold tapped the bottom of the channel from the daily brief. That worked out nice. Crude oil, I don't even know what crude did today. Was it even awake? Isn't it Wednesday? Like, wait, did they forget they had inventories? Terrible price action. The euro, now that's a bounce. They got that ping off of the major support down there at the wedge lows. And then obviously Bitcoin. Good old Bitcoin. Still waiting to see if we can get a snap to like 7150s or so. Got a little bit of time yet. The later in the day it goes, the more of a problem it's going to be, though. S&P volume stacking around the 3700s. Right underneath the last 5-minute bar. Not a shock there, I guess. All right, I get it. It doesn't have to be that big, though. Sheesh. Do you watch the other markets mostly for correlation, or how would you say you actively trade them? The euro, crude, Bitcoin, etc. So for me personally, when it comes to, I mean, it depends on the market. So for the euro is an example. I'm not a huge fan of trading the euro. It's just not my jam. But I know a lot of people love the euro. So I like analyzing it. I find it's a very technical market. So from that perspective, it's kind of nice. But I mean, realistically, it's just not one of the markets that I really enjoy trading. So no, I don't trade all of them. But as far as watching the markets and looking at what's going on, if I'm looking for correlations, the NASDAQ and the S&P, that's a 50-50 one. Sometimes the correlations are really good. Other times it's garbage. If I wanted a NASDAQ correlation, I'd look more at the Russell. It tends to be more consistent. If I wanted a correlation for the S&P, it would be the Dow. That's the big one. That's a huge correlation between the two. Gold is a fantastic market to track. For me, I like tracking it more for the physical commodity rather than the futures commodity side of things, but it's nice to know where that's at. Crude oil, I used to heavily trade. I was a big fan of crude oil, but after it went to -40 or whatever, like I can't trust it anymore. You know, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sure it's still a fine market, but a market that goes sliding down to a $30,000 margin requirement, like, no thanks. that's a hard pass. So there are a few that I just simply don't trust. But again, they're very actively traded. Whoops. They're very actively traded, so I still like cataloging them so people know what's going on. Bitcoin, I've been heavily invested in Bitcoin for a very long time. I love Bitcoin and everything it stands for. So, but that's more of a fundamental long-term for years play rather than a short-term. Although the short-term volatility can be really nice. The majority of what I'm doing throughout the day, though, realistically, is on the NASDAQ and the S&P. Those are my favorites at the moment. And that's not to say that it won't change, just like it changed from crude oil to the NASDAQ. Whatever's moving, you know? I don't care. I think it's back to 12,674s, putting a neckline, head and shoulders. Yeah. And from a neckline perspective too, zooming, I mean, they're trying. It's a really kind of a weird one up here. It's so scrunched together. It's just, it really feels like it's begging for a pullback. It needs a dip. And what better logical place than to find a dip back to the base of the spiking channel, you know? I mean, that's pretty straightforward stuff. Kind of a megaphone now, I guess. Everyone stopped trading crude after it went negative for sure. There's no way. Nope. They need some protective measures or something, so I know that I'm not just handing over everything I own to a bank across the states, you know, like well, sorry. Anthony Crudel's recent interview with Mayor Black, yeah. There's got to be some safety measures or something. Like, that's the issue that you run into with margin, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. When you're trading a margin market like that, it goes negative. And it can. You know, that's the scary thing. When you're trading like a straight up stock, it's either worth nothing or it's worth something. Unless you're using margin. Then you're back in the same boat again. That's why futures are such an aggressive market. But still not going to put money in crude, that's for sure. Plus, just as from a fundamental side of things, I feel like crude oil's got to really start making some shifts here to make it viable, because it seems like around every corner someone's looking for an oil alternative. And eventually there's no more oil needed anymore, you know? I don't think I'm going to see that in my lifetime, but who knows? The rate 2020's going. Be hanging out with aliens up in spaceships with the Galactic Federation. Say there's a 2% chance it dips to your buy orders. Yeah, I know. But it's the NASDAQ. And if it's going to do it on any of the markets, it's the NASDAQ. I'm totally fine leaving my orders hanging out there. That little trap underneath that base, though, went one tick low, and now it's starting to churn back up. Watch the volume here. It really seems like they're trying to build a brick wall. How many candles? I'll hit the same. 97 quarter. 1, 2, 3. There's a lot of volume up there. Still watching the volume in this area. Kind of, sort of holding interesting, but the zone might even be a little bit further up now, given the time of day. Ugh. 81.50. 8150 is a higher zone of interest, but hi NASDAQ. There it is. Oh man. Give me one good juke back to the downside. Really? Bruh. I got dodged on that one. What happened? Man, they swerved me hard on that. I tried hitting a bid and they bottom bid me out on the lows and I didn't get a single one of them. See if we can get a secondary push. There's a lot of volume coming in down at these lows. We got 10 minutes left. There's a lot more volume building in those 85s. I'm going to snap one up here just to make sure this volume holding isn't going to send this through the roof. If it is going to jump, 94 would be the area of interest. Bigger zones still down in the 7150s, though. I can't believe how hard they swerved me on the low. I'd like them to encroach into those 680s again. As far as a risk tolerance standpoint, it hasn't barely pulled back at all. If it does want to continue higher, I mean, there's a 2-to-1 objective at 97, but it's probably not where I'm going to land. I would rather see 93.75. I think it makes more sense. I'll stack another one in here. I like the support that's coming in, and there's decent volume showing defense. Whoo, big volume just showed up. Whoa, 83 just got slammed. Market pulling back a little bit deeper into the zone of interest. 7150 is the big spot. 94.75 is the low on the S&P, but the high of that previous swing isn't until 94. So if it's going to dip, I would rather see it chunk through that down to like 92. Risk reward's still relatively wide on something like that, though. A lot more volume starting to stack up here. The way that the market's moved, if it does give a quick jump up, I would rather just exit that first one at break even and float my average a little bit further down. More volume stepping up at 76.50s. Six minutes or so. Support on the S&P next would be at 692. All right. So basically break even on the second portion. Now I'm going to try to trail out the rest of it. The stop's relatively tight, but I'm trying to utilize this volume to support the move. Let's see if we can get it going a little bit further now. Jeez. Okay. No, that's cool. I didn't want to trail the rest anyway. Golly, I just moved my stop up and the thing turned around and just sniped it. Okay. Well, I tried to get that trail to go, but market told me nope. Ended up just being a small scalp in the end of things, I guess, but... Pretty muddy water on the way down. 4.5 minutes until we round off into the end of the day. I still really like this 71. More like 71.5. Let's see if I can grab a couple down there on another flush. More so for a quick bounce. Not expecting a huge amount there either. Looking at objectives off of the bounce. 1-to-1 bounce, 2-to-1 bounce, 3-to-1 bounce. Lots of areas of interest if it can get just a little bit of a jump. Longs could be dumping here, taking profit into the close. Yo, yeah, for sure. And given the end of the day right around the corner, it's only the middle of the week, but today was the only day this week that really had any news. So, I mean, if traders were waiting for the news to move things and they were wrong, today's going to be the day that they start hitting the exits. Final 3 minutes here. I'm going to drop the S&P one. It's a little too late in the day for that one to fire off anymore. If I had maybe 15, 20 minutes yet, sure. But NASDAQ, there's still time. I know, right? Oy, that weekend gap fill. Still waiting. The S&P filled it. The NASDAQ traders are still... Oof. 15 seconds until 58. That's when things get a little bit crazy. Final end of day orders. Let's see if we can get a flush down into the 71, 72s. $58 really didn't move a whole lot of anything. Definite volume stepping up at 78.50, but that's about it. Final little bit. This is also the defense zone for earlier buyers who bought that big bull rally up on the 1 minute. This is right back at their break evens. 1.5 minutes left. Getting a little dip. Come on. It's right there. 1 minute. 72.25. That's where it stops. God. Really? All right. I have to cancel now. That was the dip that I was waiting for. Here, let me get closer to the mic for you here. there's your face palm. Well, I was trying to buy that dip to 71.50. They missed it by a little bit. We've got 30 seconds left, so I'm not going to leave pending limits, but I will still look for scalps off that zone. I got to see the volume stack up real heavy down here, though. 15 seconds, 10 seconds. Big volume stack right there. I like that. Give me a nice little juke right there. Quick. Yeah. There we go. Woo! Get it right before that final minute. Lordy, lordy. All right, just a quick little snap, but you saw that volume step up at 68. Whew. All right, anyway, that's going to do it. Man, what a frustrating afternoon. Came one tick away, came a couple ticks away, came a point away. Made it work. It was a great trading afternoon, but man, kind of frustrating. Not going to complain though. When things are good, it's good enough. That'll do it. Enjoy the rest of the day. Hopefully you had a great trading day, and we will see you all tomorrow, right? Have a good one. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks. Bye.